I did finally see Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness when it came out on Disney Plus, and I was kind of glad that I didn't go see it in the theaters. I could have seen it. I saw Top Gun instead because my boyfriend wanted to see it, and I don't really regret that decision because I was surprised how uncompelling the narrative and even the spectacle in this movie was. A few things did bother me just from a writing standpoint. One of them was that certain scenes that were clearly meant to be dramatic or scary or sad, to me came off as weirdly goofy. The one that stands out to me the most is when there's a zombie version of Doctor Strange and he has to deliver an inspiring speech, but he has to deliver it as a zombie, and I just found it very hard to concentrate on what he was saying when he looks so odd. Just the idea of a zombie-like being like having a moment of pathos is inherently funny to me, and it was such a distracting visual image that it really seemed jarring with the overall tone of the scene. And another one is where a character is flung off a cliff, supposedly to his death, and it should be a shocking and harrowing moment. But just the way it's framed, because you don't actually get a close-up as he's about to be thrown off. You see the moment before, and then I think the camera switches to a different angle where you see, like from a distance, him being thrown. So the way it's set up, it almost seems like a comedy beat, because you often see that in comedy where you see something about to happen and then you see it right after it happens, and then you have this moment of putting two and two together, and it's kind of funny because of that. And like also like you're seeing something from a distance, so it's less emotionally impactful. And I do not think that was supposed to be a comedic moment, and yet something about the motion and the way order things happened in took away from the drama for me. There were moments when I felt like a scene could only be about one thing or one character at a time. Particularly in the very beginning, there's a part where America Chavez is teamed up with an alternate universe version of Doctor Strange, and they are fighting a monster, but it's more accurate to say that as soon as he starts fighting the monster, she just kind of goes into stasis. She may not have a lot of powers that would be useful in such a situation, but I don't think she's supposed to be a passive kid. I think she's supposed to be someone who's been resourceful and surviving on her own for a while. So it's very strange for me that she's not at least trying to act, even if she ends up messing up things more or her attempts don't work. I can't imagine that this is a kid who would see her friend struggle and not even try something like, "Oi, you ugly monster, look over here." At least try distracting it, or try running ahead to get the thing they're looking for. It seemed very odd that this movie could not juggle both Doctor Strange fighting a monster and also the fear or frustration or courage or whatever is like happening with America at the same time. A lot of the dialogue, and this is very much my pet peeve as a writer, felt less like people communicating with each other and more like puppets setting up the next plot beat. This is something that I think most people do not pick up on, obviously because I'm just so much better at media analysis than everyone else. And there's no way to say it without sounding really arrogant, but it frustrates me so much when I can tell that that's what's going on and I don't feel that connection with the characters. Okay, I realize that this doesn't really make sense without an example, so I'll just summarize some of the dialogue that happened at the wedding scene. First, in the conversation with the other guest, it does feel like they're rushing through bullet points. Establish Doctor Strange's self-centeredness because he forgets that other people disappeared for 5 years. Bring up whether Doctor Strange made the right choice or if he was playing God. Then transition into summarizing Doctor Strange's character, best surgeon and superhero, and finally transition into the entrance of Christine. And then the conversation between Stephen and Christine, to me, is hit or miss. It seems very inappropriate that he would say he wished things were different. At her wedding, like, timing, dude, no one would say that. Even him, like, he must realize how inappropriate that is. But he has to say it because then she can bring up his playing God tendencies again by saying, no, things probably couldn't have been different because you have to be the one holding the knife. However, there are some things in this conversation that I like as well, like Christine admitting that her new husband is a fan of Doctor Strange, which is a bit awkward, but she clearly puts her new husband's wishes first by offering to introduce the two men, in spite of any awkwardness that it might cause for herself and Doctor Strange. And I also think that actually him turning water into wine at her wedding is like funny and cute, and it sums up his God playing tendencies better than the dialogue does, actually, which shows you that if you get a little bit creative about establishing character, it can be much more effective. And sometimes they don't even set up the next plot beat very well. There was a point where Doctor Strange is going to dreamwalk and hop into another universe that way while his body is still meditating in this universe. And he warns his friend Christine, oh, like, I might be attacked by the souls of the damned while I'm doing this. You better protect my body. And I'm like, how many souls of the damned do you think she can take? She's just an ordinary human. Are, like, the souls of the damned really wimpy? Like, can she just punch them out? I am really curious. And then it turns out that they're not super wimpy, and she's gotta both, like, hurry and try to protect him and find some kind of weapon to use against them at the same time. And she's just running around the room looking for anything that could possibly take out a soul of the damned. And luckily she finds something. But what on earth, like, what characters in that situation would not either say, like, look around the room for anything that can be used as a weapon first and, like, set up a whole arsenal? It's not gonna take that much longer. And this is your life you're talking about. You should be careful. And I can't imagine Christine in this situation just be like, right, souls of the damned, I can totally take them out. Like, what person would not ask, take them out? How? How? Overall, I just don't see a compelling narrative reason why Doctor Strange has to have such a large part in this movie. I know they have to use him for the marketing. That's why he's in this movie, because they think, oh, we need a famous white man to get people's butts into the theater. They're not going to get their butts into the theater for this Latina girl who is, like, having her Marvel debut. Like, no one's going to want to see that, except I would have totally wanted to see that. So it's a very cynical reason why he's the main character, but I just found his arc so uncompelling, and I'm not even entirely sure what it is. I might have to see the movie again, even though it was kind of boring. In the very beginning, we see an alternate version of Doctor Strange be willing to kill a kid if it's for the greater good. And then a little bit after that, we see that he's feeling some feelings about his ex getting married. And at the wedding, another character also brings up to Strange that maybe he didn't do the right thing in giving over the Time Stone to Thanos back in Infinity War. Like, maybe the cost of that was too high, and Strange was playing God a little bit when he made that decision for everyone. And Strange is like, huh. And then it doesn't really come up again, but I think it's supposed to establish that even though this version of Strange did not ever literally kill a child for the better, for the greater good, he has done other morally dubious things for the greater good. I do feel like it's kind of a cop-out, though, to have a Doctor Strange do something really bad, but not our Doctor Strange. I don't know, like sometimes you've got to let your main characters do something that's actually going to make your audience angry. Throughout the movie, Doctor Strange is very rude and entitled. He keeps being salty about the fact he's not Sorcerer Supreme in either this universe or another universe. He keeps assuming that other people got it illegitimately, and if any version of himself had really tried or been allowed a fair shot, Doctor Strange would always be the Sorcerer Supreme, but I'm not really sure why he thought that. I was actually thinking, watching the movie, that, yeah, maybe you're just not the most qualified person, dude. Like, that's okay. Not everyone has to be the sorceriest sorcerer. You're still a good sorcerer. But I don't think his rudeness really plays into his arc, now that I'm thinking about it, because I don't know if he ever apologizes or, like, rethinks the way he was acting. I think it's just a Marvel trope at this point. Like, the snarkiness kind of sells for the main characters, at least the guys. At the end of the movie, Strange makes the decision that he won't kill a kid, even if it's for the better good, which I think is a solid decision, but it's not that morally complicated of a decision to come to. So I feel like that's kind of a weak arc. Like, that's a very low bar for your hero. Like, do not kill children. I do think it is weird that the conversation about whether he did the wrong thing in the past never really comes up again. And at one point, Wanda does call him a hypocrite because he's willing to dream walk into a dead body when he criticized her for dream walking into living bodies in the past. And even he could make a case that he's not like he's not violating anyone's consent because the body no longer has a person in it, and that's why it's different. But he doesn't make a meaningful distinction, and he also never comes back to whether or not he made the wrong decision by handing over the Mind Stone. To me, that undermines his arc, because he's supposed to be going from someone who's willing to do anything for the greater good to someone who is has some lines that he will not cross. But if we don't really see him grappling with the decision at each turn and being like, is this okay? Is that okay? Okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. And like, no, this is enough. And like finding his new moral compass that isn't solely guided by the greater good, that is a little bit more nuanced, then his decision is not as compelling. And his decision should be compelling because he's the main character in the movie. He also admits that he always has cared for Christine, and that his putting distance between them was not really for the greater good. It was a fear of intimacy, which again, I say that is a good thing to come to a realization about. I mean, kind of sad for an adult of his age. Again, the bar is very, very low here. Better that he realized that than not realizing it, but again, that is like a very, very basic level of emotional intelligence. I think maybe it's the setup that he's going to be a little bit more open in his mentorship of America Chavez and her learning to be a sorcerer too. But I wasn't that invested in their relationship for reasons that I will get to in my next point. I think it's very interesting that America Chavez and Wanda Maximoff almost have stories that perfectly mirror each other going into this movie. America Chavez has been separated from her parents because she accidentally universe hopped, and now she doesn't even know if they're okay in another universe or if they were transported into a really dangerous one, and she's trying to get them back. Meanwhile, Wanda, as we saw from WandaVision, is grieving the loss of her two children. And although they are somewhat magical beings in this universe, they do exist in alternate universes. So she's hoping she can hop to an alternate and reunite with them. So we see a child who is grieving the loss of her mom's two female parents, and we also see an adult woman who's grieving the loss of her two male children. So given that, you wonder why this movie is not about the relationship between these two female characters. This teen who's learning magic and this older magic woman, and their extremely similar motivations and goals. They both want to be universe hopping to look for someone or two someones that they lost. America is clearly interested in learning magic and learning to control her powers, and Wanda, in addition to Doctor Strange, is someone who could hypothetically help her to do that. As America also does have two moms, it would be natural for her to assume that when Wanda finally hops into a different universe, she intends to co-parent with her other self rather than killing her other self and taking the other self's place. Because she would be like, well, I've got two moms. Why can't Wanda co-parent with the other Wanda? And then that'll be two moms too. And I just imagine this moment where America kind of puts two and two together, and she's like, so what happens when you get to the other universe and your kids are there and you're also there? Oh, I guess you'll just co-parent with the other you. It's a little bit weird, but we're open to alternate family structures. And Wanda's like, yes, that is exactly what I'm going to do. That kind of plotline would remind me a little bit of Guardians of the Galaxy 2. In that movie, Peter Quill, for a part of the movie, joins up with Ego until it becomes clear that Ego's motives and methods are not pure, and they have a falling out towards the end of the movie. And it would be kind of cool to see America Chavez do a kind of similar thing with Wanda Maximoff, where at first Wanda appears to be this really sweet, understanding female mentor who really gets her, as opposed to the Doctor Stranges that America has met, who are all kind of rude, and one tried to kill her. The two of them have this complicated relationship where they are really able to bond, but as America learns more and more about Wanda's true plans, she has to realize that this woman does not have her best interests at heart, and to eventually stop working with her. And that would be a much more interesting debut for this character. I was actually not sure whether this is the first time we've seen the character in the Marvel Universe. I thought maybe she had appeared in another movie or in one of the shows, and we were already supposed to know these things about her powers and her backstory, but apparently this is her debut, which kind of sucks because she doesn't have a lot to do, and I thought she was really cute, and I was invested in her story a lot more than I was in the very meh story from Doctor Strange. Sorry. Sorry, Doctor Strange. You've already been in a lot of movies, so you can take a back seat for once. And I really did not like the way that America just becomes a plot point in Doctor Strange's arc by the end of the movie, because as I said before, his arc is going from being willing to kill children for greater good to having an opportunity to do the exact same thing and not doing it. And because his choice has to be a real choice and it has to be meaningful, then it can't be simply that he can't, that he either doesn't have the chance or that America is pleading for her life or something like that. In fact, America gives him permission to murder her, which to me is like a very disturbing downward arc for this character. That she not only is willing to give up her own life, which could be a heroic thing to do if she's taking charge of that decision, but she's letting someone else drain her of her powers and use her powers instead of her because she can't control them, and that will kill her. So it's like a character has gone from being highly motivated and at least willing to try using her powers to one that has completely given up, which is really icky, and I don't like it at all. And that was not in any way what her arc was about. She's not someone who has too much power and has to realize that she shouldn't be using it, and it's better to let someone murder her and steal her powers or anything like that. Not that Wanda's that way either. So because the decision has to be Doctor Strange's, it cannot be America's, and that is really disappointing. And it's another example of the movie can only feature one character at once in a scene. If Doctor Strange is doing something and making an important choice, then America cannot be doing anything. She has to be basically just sitting there saying, your choice, my dude, your choice. What are you gonna do? Which is not compelling writing for me. This is not even getting into the way this movie shat all over the emotional catharsis at the end of WandaVision. Not only do we see the character of Wanda in a much more morally reprehensible state than when she ended that series, but we don't even get to see the transformation and how the grief eventually led her to this very dark place. It is interesting to me that as soon as a character shows Wanda even the smallest bit of empathy, being willing to hold space for her to understand what is truly going on with her and what's motivating her, and being able to reassure her that the things she really needs, even if she doesn't want it at the moment, is going to be fulfilled. And that is when another version of Wanda, instead of running from Wanda Maximoff or trying to stop her or fight her, just approaches her very slowly and assures her that her children are okay and they will be loved. And that, in addition to seeing that she has alienated her own children by being a scary witch lady, is what finally breaks her, and she realizes that all the things she's doing is not going to give her the connection she really needs. And it is such a short moment, and it makes me so much more angry that no one through the rest of the movie was willing to just sit down with Wanda and talk. It is like a movie of, no, Wanda, no universe hopping to kill people. That is a bad. That is a bad Wanda. Bad witch. Stop that. Stop. And there is no room for, yeah, what you're doing is not right. Innocent people are going to get hurt. Let's just sit down and talk. Tell me about what it's been like for you. You are like clearly believing that no one understands you, and maybe you're right. Let's just, get some magic tea. I can't promise that I'm going to be persuaded, but let's have some magic tea and talk about it. But no one is willing to take the time to do that. It is interesting that we have another telepath in this movie, which is Xavier, but it is weird that for someone who has mind powers, his powers have nothing to do with psychology or counseling. It is more like in the realm of the mind, he can do action that he can't do in his real life. So it's almost like an alternate universe. And again, very disappointing. This is like why I also think that this movie cannot do characters relating to each other, because everything has to be resolved by action. And like so many options where it's just like, could you talk about it? Could you communicate? No one can do that, except maybe Wanda can do that a little bit. But she is the villain. Ideally, especially if America spends more time with Wanda in this movie, I think a really good arc for her would be deciding how far she is willing to go to get her moms back. And eventually she has to choose between doing something morally dubious to get her moms back and being separated from them for the near future, maybe forever. And having her choose to give up the opportunity to reunite with them, because she will not do that if there's a human cost. And I think that would dovetail really nicely with both Doctor Strange's story and Wanda's story, how she initially thought that Wanda was more aligned with her, but then it turns out that Wanda is willing to do whatever it takes, no matter the human cost, and America is not. And maybe she and Strange are going through kind of the same moral journey at the same time. That'd be kind of cool. So anyway, those are my thoughts about the movie, and those are some ways that I would rewrite it, particularly putting more America in the movie, not the country, the character, because I thought she was really cute, and I would have liked to have her do more rather than just kind of sneak around the back of fight scenes and be a plot moppet for Doctor Strange. I don't know, like apparently a lot of people also had some concerns about this movie. I kind of see why. I don't know if they were the same as mine, but hopefully mine made sense. Thanks for watching!